Today is the final day of Data Platform Week. We have made it, y'all. The thing that makes events like this great are the community. Dagster's community never ceases to surprise me. Fortunately, mostly in positive ways. Thank you all for your attendance today and this week. We hope that the sessions have helped you build your data engineering skills and hopefully your data platform as well. Fortunately, we are not quite done yet, and we have one more exciting day to share with you. Today is going to be a bit different from previous sessions. We're going to start with a presentation from Jared and Ben that I think really touches on a lot of the pain points that data practitioners struggle with daily. After that, we're going to jump into a panel discussion with Atlan, Dagster, SDF Labs, and Sigma. That is an awful lot of knowledge to combine into one session. One other thing that I want to mention is that today we will be answering Q&A questions on the first session, mostly via chat, to make sure that we have time for the panel discussion. Please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions, and we will do our best to address them. Jared, let's go deep on insights from your data assets.
Hi, I'm Jared, Head of Product for Dagster Labs. Earlier this week, our CTO Nick talked about the importance of the orchestrator as the unified control plane that enables data practitioners to own their data pipelines end-to-end. We also heard from one of our developers, Owen, about the launch of declarative automations to make building event-driven data pipelines faster and more efficient. Finally, my teammates Alex and Colton announced the promotion of our pipes protocol to general availability, allowing data teams to invoke, orchestrate, and monitor compute in any execution environment with confidence. Today I'll be talking to you about the importance of having a system of record and source of truth for your production data assets, and how Dagster can help serve that purpose. As part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about what a data asset system of record should do, some best practices we've observed from teams about data documentation, and some new BI integrations we're releasing to help bring analysts and analytics engineers closer to the data platform. So let's go. I'm going to start off by sharing our definition of a system of record so we have a common reference point. A data system of record is an authoritative source of truth for all data assets within the platform, with contextual information about how these assets can and should be used. That information is typically a list of properties and metadata that include a written description, where it is stored, how it is computed, info about status and quality, lineage and dependencies, and so on. There's a lot of important information that you need to know about data assets when using them as part of your work within a data platform. So why should you care about having a system of record for your data platform? Well, in a word, collaboration. For most data teams, the goal is to enable your data practitioners to work together efficiently on the same platform to create trustworthy data for their business stakeholders. But as we've seen from our own customers, even small data teams eventually find themselves drowning in complexity. Where teams used to handle tens or hundreds of data assets, now it's not uncommon for teams to wrestle with scale in the thousands. In fact, over 35% of pro customers on Dagster have more than 1,000 assets being orchestrated. As data platforms scale, institutional knowledge just can't keep up, especially across team domains, making cross-team collaboration harder and harder. An effective system of record will provide enough relevant contextual information about all of your important data assets to help data practitioners work together. Preserving the ability to collaborate on a big data platform is one of the few reasons why companies adopt standalone data catalogs like Atlan or DataHub. These tools, when used correctly, can be extremely helpful in tracking and storing important properties about data assets. But data catalogs are only as good as the data documentation that practitioners put into that. Teams must have effective processes for storing and sharing information about their data assets to maximize their effectiveness. After talking with users, we've observed that forward-thinking teams are adapting software engineering best practices like shifting left their documentation of properties about their data assets to earlier in the development lifecycle. Shifting left in software engineering means moving quality control and testing earlier into the development lifecycle to identify problems that save time and effort on rework. Adapting a shift-left mentality for documentation and metadata means declaring properties about your data assets in source code and systems wherever possible. This can help teams in several ways, including improved accuracy and consistency because data properties are tightly coupled with the actual data transformations and logic, easier onboarding for teammates to understand structure, purpose, and relationships of data, better governance for requiring properties through basic CI and unit tests, such as enforcing that all assets have onerous descriptions and specific tags, and improved productivity and local development because of the reduced need for context switching to understand data. Unlike Airflow, Dagster is asset-oriented, which means that data assets are a foundational concept and not a secondary abstraction. So while Dagster already automatically retrieves a variety of contextual information about data assets via its integrations, Teams can easily adopt shift-left strategies by integrating documentation about data directly into their Dagster code. This information becomes available in the local dev environment in the Dagster UI and is shared with other tools wherever possible, including your standalone data catalog. But as mentioned earlier, an authoritative data platform system of record needs more than rich context about data assets. It also needs to have a complete view of all the assets on the data platform. And because Dagster is only one of many tools that create and modify data assets in your platform, Dagster must be able to retrieve relevant information about those assets from those other tools. So over the last 2 years, we've launched some best-in-class integrations for those tools that create data assets. For example, ETL tools like Fivetran, Airbyte, DLT, and Meltano, as well as transformation tools like dbt and SDF, all to bring more of your data platform into the control plane. Building on these learnings, we're releasing a series of new BI integrations that expand the Dagster asset graph down to where your data analysts and business stakeholders live, down in the data visualization layer. These integrations will retrieve information about data assets from Sigma, Power BI, Tableau, and Looker, and include them in your end-to-end data pipelines. So why should you care about BI tools being integrated into your data orchestrator? Well, let me ask you a question. How often has a data quality investigation started because a data graph shared in a metrics meeting doesn't look right anymore? Because data visualizations and dashboards are the last mile of data-driven decision-making, they are the primary interface between business stakeholders and the data platform, and data quality problems have real impacts on both business processes as well as perceived quality of the data platform itself. In collaboration with a few key enterprise design partners, we spent some time trying to understand what teams are facing as they work to support their BI teams, and 2 goals were common to everyone. BI datasets and views should be represented with their lineage on the global asset lineage graph to help improve shared understanding between analysts and data engineers about data dependencies, and that BI data processes should be orchestratable in true end-to-end data pipelines, from data source all the way to the end visualization. They don't want to be stuck chaining together scheduled processes to ensure that data is up to date and distributed accordingly. So that's what we're delivering with our newest integrations. By simply adding a new library and a few lines of code to your code location, Dagster will connect to your BI tool and retrieve its assets and populate them into the asset graph. Now data engineers and BI analysts will have a common reference point for understanding their data dependencies. Further, we're also adding capabilities to make your data assets in your BI layer orchestratable. So Dagster can orchestrate your data pipeline from source to visualization with event-based orchestration instead of through chain-together dependencies. I'm going to turn it over to my teammate Ben to give you a walkthrough of the Dagster experience that brings together a BI integration and some of our data system of record capabilities so you can see how all of this functionality fits together for common workflows that are relevant to your team. Thanks, Ben.
First, let's take a look at how we can get started using Dagster's BI integrations. In this case, we have a series of dashboards built in Power BI that we would like to load into Dagster. Our data platform centralizes data from a variety of sources into a set of polished presentation layer tables. These tables are imported into Power BI semantic models and used to back our Power BI dashboards. Loading a representation of our BI assets into Dagster is easy. First, we retrieve credentials for our BI tool. We add a few lines to our existing Dagster codebase, which pulls in credentials from the environment, and then tell Dagster to load a set of asset specs from our Power BI workspace. If we reload our code location, we'll see that Dagster has pulled in all our assets from Power BI. Each semantic model has upstream dependencies on asset keys corresponding to the tables it depends on in our warehouse. Each of these assets also pulls in rich metadata. Semantic models have representations of column schema and a link to view the model in the Power BI UI. Reports display their owners. From this setup alone, practitioners can get an idea of what downstream consumers use their presentation layer models for. Once our initial asset specs are loaded, we can build in more functionality. For many BI integrations, Dagster can orchestrate rebuilding your BI assets. In this case, we can create asset definitions that will allow us to refresh our semantic models in Dagster. Dagster also allows for full customization of the asset specs we're pulling in. For tools that lack descriptions or owner tags, we can easily attach them. Now that we've walked through how to use our BI integrations, let's see how Dagster's data documentation delivers real value in an operational situation. Let's take a look at what a productionized platform looks like on Dagster Plus. We'll first filter to our customer data processing assets using a catalog view. In this specific case, raw data about customers, payments, and orders from our Shopify is ingested using Dagster orchestrated Fivetran to our Snowflake warehouse. Our data engineers have built a set of downstream tables to join and refine this data using dbt. We have a set of staging tables and output presentation layer data for downstream use. We can see the rich asset metadata that Dagster has automatically pulled in for each of these assets. such as column schema and SQL query. Our analysts use this presentation layer data in a series of Power BI dashboards, which are used by leadership to make marketing decisions. Let's say that I'm an analyst working on one of these dashboards, which breaks down orders by geography. I haven't made a change to my dashboard, but something seems to have gone wrong because data isn't loading anymore. Digging into the error, I can see that the dashboard isn't able to find some particular column related to first name, which describes the customer name, in a table anymore. Because I'm using the Dagster BI integration, I can easily see the upstream relationship between this dashboard and the tables that it relies on. I can see that this dashboard relies on a final customer table and an orders table. It looks like these tables are materializing correctly, so something else must be the problem. Dagster's close integration with tools means that I can introspect the final customer table built in dbt. Here, I can see that the first name column isn't found in the column schema. It looks like there's now a customer first name column. Dagster provides built-in documentation for the history of assets as well. By going to look at the update history, I can see that the code version was changed yesterday in the latest code location update by my teammate Alex. By navigating to the Git history, I can see the commit, which appears to have changed the column schema and renamed that column. Now, I can go ahead and modify the BI dashboard to use the updated name. We'd like to prevent this from happening again, but don't want to constrain Alex to be unable to make changes to his assets. Part of Dagster's value is that the rich context it provides on your data assets is also exposed programmatically. We can create an asset check, which will let us know when the schema of any of our presentation layer models changes so that our analysts can avoid their models breaking. Then, we can set up an asset alert to notify our analysts preemptively.
Thanks, Ben, for that demo. Before we close out today, I wanted to call out a few other changes being released on Dagster. One, we're upgrading our search capabilities to include more kinds of metadata such as column name and description to help you find the exact asset you're looking for. Two, we've made it possible for teams to create curated views of assets which can be saved and shared, helping teams to create common reference points in the asset graph, catalog, and overview pages. Three, we're also releasing a new default role called Catalog Viewer, which anyone can use to expand access to information about data assets throughout their organization without using up paid seats. These features are all generally available today, and the BI integrations for Looker, Sigma, Tableau, and Power BI are available in preview release, which means that they are fully functional, but we are actively developing them. We would like to promote them to GA by the end of the year. Thank you to all of you in the Dagster community for your support as we work together to improve data engineering.
All right, Jared, Ben, that was great. Shifting left can be this somewhat nebulous topic, but I really felt like this makes it clear why we should be shifting left in data engineering. Collaboration is often this thing that is just assumed to be happening, but often isn't, and having the right tools can help push the people side of things in the right direction. Seeing how the integrations into tools like Power BI and Sigma bring another layer of visibility into the orchestration layer was excellent. Tools that understand that bidirectional flow of information, they help to make a lot of the day-to-day minutia manageable. That's honestly why it's so great that we are having this panel today. Atlan, Dagster, SDF Labs, and Sigma all strongly believe in using this information to empower data teams. Thanks again, Jared and Ben, for creating the perfect segue into our panel discussion. And with that, I'll invite Elias, Eric, Jake, Nick on as well. Perfect. All right. So we have a bunch of really interesting topics to talk about today. So one of the really cool things that happened is we've been running polls throughout the entire week, and we've gotten a ton of great feedback in regards to what people are interested in, what kind of challenges they're experiencing. So hopefully we're going to cover some of that here. Looks like Elias is here as well. All right, excellent. And with that said, I do want to tee this up a little bit. So I want to give them a chance to actually introduce, who they are, what they do. These are 4 really impactful companies in this space. So with that said, why don't you kick us off, Eric, and get us started here?
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the Dagster team for having me. I'm Eric Veleker calling in from Providence, Rhode Island. I'm on the Atlan team, and we're an enterprise data catalog focused on governance and building AI-ready data products. So thanks again for having me today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for joining. Elias, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, absolutely. Calling here from San Francisco. We are SDF. We're a next generation transformation layer and analytical database engine. Think of us in the realm of DBT. But as we talk about shift data quality left, we we take that into serious consideration with our product as we natively understand the SQL you're working with, and therefore can verify that it's accurate before actually having to run it up in your database. And so happy to speak more to that today and the broad data quality ecosystem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Jake?
Yeah, happy to round it off. Thanks again for having me. My name is Jake Hannan. I lead the data platform and demo engineering teams here at Sigma. What is Sigma? Sigma at our core, we are a purpose-built for the cloud BI and data app solution. At the end of the day, our core value prop is 1 billion people can use a spreadsheet, and we have these beautiful things called the cloud data warehouse. And so we wanted to bring the familiarity of the spreadsheet to the power of a cloud data warehouse.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. And Nick, I think folks probably got to know you, but why don't you introduce yourself again, just in case?
Yeah, I'm Nick Schrock. I'm the founder and CTO of Dagster. By the way, Jake, I love that you have a demo engineering team. I find that inspiring. It's great.
We've got more to do.
That was awesome. Yeah. So I guess with that, with the introductions aside, thank you everyone for joining. Let's go ahead and kick things off. So I'm going to tee us up. And I think, the biggest thing that we've been talking about are a lot of the challenges that data teams are actually dealing with. And we had some pretty interesting polls around that too. So I have a bit of bias from the polls on what I think are the biggest challenges, but I want to tee it up a little bit to you, Nick, and just start us off by saying, what do you think are the biggest challenges that data teams are experiencing today?
Yeah, I mean, we can't answer that for all data teams, but kind of where my headspace is thinking about these days and what I encounter is that it's still shockingly difficult to kind of do the basics of data pipelines in a data platform, meaning like setting up the development environment, getting the access to the right systems, like having fast cycle times and feedback loops for people building data pipelines. And just you have to get so many things right to make it feel good. And we are just still in day 0 of making that work. So that's really kind of what I see. Like you can get to be a 90th percentile data team just by having all your practitioners in like a well-structured software development lifecycle process with testing CI, and you can have fast feedback loop. So, we try to, we work on that at Dagster by supporting features like branch deployments, which provide a kind of lightweight staging environment with every PR, but there's still a ton of work to do, especially in terms of integrating developer workflows across tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I want to toss that over to you, Jake, because I feel like you're kind of on the other end of the spectrum where now these assets are in place, right? This data is getting utilized, it's visualized for a bunch of stakeholders. Do you feel like the challenges that you're seeing are different on your end, or is it kind of all stem from that?
I think the challenges that I've noticed for prospects and customers that we've talked to might be a little bit more philosophical. And what I mean by that, like the folks doing the data pipelining and setting all that up is all well and good. But I was actually at a conference a few months ago where there was arguably some doom and gloom. What I mean by that is like, what is the value of data teams? What is it that we're trying to do? And so I think with Sigma, having the foundation set up with something like Dagster and all of that, being able to get closer to your business, bring folks into a familiar place, has allowed for data teams to provide a lot more value in a slightly different way. Historically, it's kind of been, here's your boilerplate BI reporting, go and do that, and then maybe they end up exporting it to Excel. But for us, where we're headed, building more data applications on top of cloud data warehouses like Snowflake or Databricks, we're creating much more collaborative experiences and driving value in ways that weren't really possible before.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I think driving value in ways that weren't possible before is probably that should be the tagline for data engineering for the last 2 years, honestly. Because I feel like there's new tools, including the people on this call that are emerging that are helping to bring some of that value forward that I think historically was siloed off, like someone, prints off a report and sends it up the ladder. I think exposing that information is really critical. And I think,
if I can quickly add on that. So driving new value is the end goal of the data team, right? And innovating on new ways to bring new types of analysis to business decisions, absolutely. But I feel as though if we're talking about challenges, the large majority of data teams spend the majority of their time fixing issues that come as a byproduct of the translation layer between transformation and ingestion and transformation and BI, right? And when there's a change introduced, whether it be to ingestion, it breaks something in transformation, or to transformation breaking something in BI. And the lack of this unified control plane, I think, which I know Dagster is acutely focused on, I think presents those sort of challenges. And these data teams spend their time fixing those kind of issues as opposed to driving new value oftentimes, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a good point as well. And Eric, I'm curious, like, because how much of this could be solved by having more insights into the data, like having a full-blown data catalog that really provides some of this information?
Well, we certainly think that's important. We've seen a number of themes as we've gone out in the market and spoken with a number of enterprise teams. Specific to the enterprise data catalog category, there are a few things that we see as challenges. First of all, despite oftentimes several years of trying with multiple vendors, we've seen a failure to actually implement the data catalog to start driving value. So that's been a common theme. Another piece is that there's simply not business user activation. And we think that's critical because of lack of collaboration that results. And really the metadata control plane that enterprise we think really needs to drive higher order operations. You can't go forward without if it lacks the business context. So you've got to get those business folks involved with skin in the game. And finally, we see from our perspective in the stack, there are a number of legacy tools that are just not prepared for the future, particularly all the change we see coming from AI. So ultimately, all these things contribute to the fact that a catalog that doesn't have the kind of traits that Atlan's coming forward with is ultimately minimizing the ROI on the existing data stack spend, for example, data platform investments with Dagster.
Yeah. And Eric, you teed me up beautifully there. So thank you. Because I wanted to jump into another topic here, which is actually around legacy tools, because we have a lot of really large companies and that we work with and even small companies alike. And we're seeing that they tend to accumulate a bunch of legacy software that they're stuck with, and it just never quite goes away. So how do we help teams that are stuck in this limbo? What can we do to kind of help those teams, and what are the strategies that like you're implementing with your tools to push them towards a better world, frankly? And I guess I'll throw that over to Jake. Let's.
Can I just say Sigma? No, it's a good point, and it's something we see often, and that's I talked about just kind of the legacy BI tools and where we're going, and really the advent of the cloud data warehouse has made so much of this possible, right? So now that a lot of folks have moved their data to a cloud data warehouse, and it's just kind of sitting there stagnant, and they still have these kind of point solutions or things that have been sitting there for a while. With something like Sigma, we allow folks to actually bring that stuff to life. So we're moving towards, I know I said this already, but this idea of if you already have your data in a warehouse, I'm convinced the term warehouse is the wrong term because it makes people just think it's something that sits there and kind of goes, maybe we should call it a data factory or something like that. But allowing folks to actually make use of their data to combine things and make actual products that can be consumed, whether it's an analyst trying to do things that matter, understanding KPIs, or actually building workflows and processes in the BI tool. Again, centralizing all of that information and actually making it usable. Because it feels like for a while, a lot of things have just kind of been sitting there and people are still trying to figure out how it all works. So that's what we're excited about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think speaking to that point, so I think there are three outcomes if a data team decides to take a bet on a new technology, right? The first of which is it goes really poorly. And then the person that like championed that might lose their job. That's the worst outcome by far. The second of which is like it's an incremental improvement. In which case, you might get a small win, but it probably won't spread like wildfire. What you really want is for the data team to realize your product, or what you're coming into a market with an existing incumbent, right? You want your product to be a revolution, right? And to really like completely evolve the way they're doing things. And if that's the case, then I think you end up actually just benefiting everyone's careers who decide to adopt you and take the early bet. And that's kind of your responsibility as the whether it be customer success or the product development team on new technologies to drive those like revolutions, And so I think that's what we kind of feel like we're doing here at the transformation layer is really moving towards a world where the transformation layer actually understands your SQL, right? And when we do that, and teams end up just completely removing any downstream data quality byproducts after development, right? So if you're catching every single error that your SQL introduces in a pipeline as you're developing it, then this whole world of like maintaining post deployment issues and anomaly detection and observability almost becomes unnecessary. And I think it's a really powerful shift. And ideally creates champions that sort of tell the rest of the industry, hey, this is the new way to do things.
Wow. Unnecessary is strongly worded, my friend. Nick, I'm curious what your perspective is here.
Yeah, I mean, dealing with legacy technologies is kind of the ever-present struggle for any data platform team who is working at like a company of any scale and lineage. I think what people don't think about enough when they're doing one of these projects are the kind of incentives of all the different stakeholders throughout the entire systems and what they're incentivized to do at what period of time. So, someone isn't going to be incentivized to move from one system to another unless there's something in it for them and their objectives. So, you know, and and also you need to at the same time reduce coordination as much as possible because the more stakeholders you get involved in convincing someone, you're adding more people who could potentially veto something. So like when you're thinking about this, and we've been thinking about this a lot, like for example, I think that there is a lot of value in quickly landing and delivering unified kind of user experiences without forcing a bunch of migrations of underlying infrastructure. That's kind of like where our federation strategy is coming from. Because basically at that point, if you can provide a unified experience to a huge swath of the org, then a much smaller part of the org is the one actually dealing with the local, like the legacy infrastructure. And then it's incumbent on them whether or not to decide whether or not like, oh, it's actually going to be more valuable now to migrate off Airflow after kind of the rest of the org has unified it, working on the unified platform. Because at that point, it's mostly an infrastructure project. If like the rest of the org is dealing with kind of say like the Dagster UI, and that's what they can interact with, the infrastructure of around Airflow can be swapped out afterwards with it by a small team that doesn't have to coordinate with a bunch of people. And that's just like one example. So I think that you really have to think about the micro incentives of every single stakeholder and try to sequence their decision making they have to make over time. So you're not trying to like convince 10 teams all at the same time to do everything all at once, which is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree. It's one of our biggest product efforts right now is native interpretation of DBT projects, right? So that teams don't have to migrate at all and can get all the benefits of SDF, the Rust speed, the static compilation, all of that, just natively slurping up your DBT models.
I can share the Atlan perspective on legacy technology. We're an enterprise data catalog, so by nature of our category, we're building these, you can think of digital twins of enterprise data estates. And so it's always a continual consideration of us that there's legacy tools that we have to deal with. For some perspective, there's a wide spectrum on the quality of metadata provisioning with tools on the market. I'm happy to say that tools like SDF and Dagster and Sigma are especially good and can support metadata and governance operations on top of that. But this is where what we try to do is, invest in our platform extensibility, make it easy to bring in metadata, even when the tool itself might be challenged on that front that we're integrating with and trying to provide visibility into. But one of the things that I recommend with folks that I speak with in the field is that when they're going out and performing, say, due diligence for an RFP, to start adding to consideration actual metadata provisioning policy as a criteria. I think that's really important for interoperability going forward. And one other thing that Atlan does is by building that digital twin, we help to quantify the impact of a legacy tool on business value, and then help to provide the metadata management operations to support, hopefully, a migration to a better tool.
Yeah. Eric, I have a quick follow-on question for you. Sorry, Brandon. That
Go
you
ahead.
used the term data estate. I think I like the term, the vibe of it, but how would you define it?
Oh, great question. I mean, in modern enterprise, you're going to have federated use cases. So you're going to have folks on all different clouds. There's going to be on-prem. There's going to be a wide variety of tools. So we think about almost like a data factory with multiple data product assembly lines within them. But the data estate is not just the data and the tools, it's the people. It's the organizational structure that's reflected by the teams. So we think of this as all encompassing. And when I talk about the digital twin, again, it's not just the technical metadata, it's the business context. And we think that by bringing those together, we can support a lot of value drivers for the business.
Got it. So the estate is both all the technical artifacts, but also the organizational structure and, inclusive of probably lots of other things I'm not thinking of right now.
Yeah, a good way to think about everything that's relevant to a governance conversation is a good way to think about it.
Got it. Okay.
Every week
And
I
that's
learn a new data term. It's fantastic.
it is a good term.
My term for the week. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool too because it was actually one thing that I was going to latch onto that Nick said as well, which is like getting those stakeholders to actually invest in the mission to make these migrations and get off of legacy tools. And if we look at who we have here on this panel, right, we have, orchestration capabilities, we have transformation capabilities, we have presentation capabilities, and we have effectively like introspective, capabilities to really look at that data and help put a valuation around like making these transitions. And I think like without the right tools to sell that, you can't sell a technical transformation because it's complicated. It's usually lengthy. There's a lot of challenges there, right? So I think it's really interesting to kind of hear the different perspectives on that. Cool. I want to jump back to one other area though, because again, I'm going back to the polls that we ran this week. But one of the things that came up pretty heavily is data quality. So that was the most voted as like the biggest challenge that teams are experiencing. And data quality feels like the thing that teams know that they need to do, but they often kind of kick the can on it, or they get to it a little bit too late, or they eventually get to it when it's a really acute pain. How are you helping teams to actually move towards baking in data quality? And I know, Elias, you already talked about this a little bit, but maybe you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, this is like a fundamental value prop as we go and talk to teams about how SDF can solve their problems. I think the shift left component is huge. And I think we take shift left beyond just the sort of CI/CD and all the way down to effectively as you're writing the SQL, right? And this is what compilers typically do across all programming languages, right? They tell you as you're authoring when things might go wrong or if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. And then they actually optimize what you've written into something that can be executed, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to bring to data teams everywhere. We're trying to take an enormous amount of data quality issues that would be caught after the execution of a DAG or the query and bring them down local to your system as you're authoring. I think that beyond that too, the metadata that we can effectively understand and derive from your SQL queries enables us to build a broader set of even business logic checks that can also be shifted left and left and left. Yeah, maybe that's about it.
Can you share that? I think that was just an internal conversation. Brandon, can you share what was said? The shifting?
Oh, yeah. So basically, someone said 3 shift lefts make a right.
I love that.
Sorry,
Yes.
I thought that was a chat to everyone. I missed that.
Yeah, it was to host and panelists.
Just out of nowhere, I just looked crazy. I was like, why is this guy saying this 3 times?
Zoom has this amazing feature where the audience can throw bombs at the hosts and panelists so that everyone's seeing it. It's actually
exactly.
It's a very
and that was a pretty funny one, Joseph. So I appreciate that.
I think one of the issues with data quality is like what are we actually talking about? Is data quality just writing your software correctly, or is it downstream stakeholders stating what they assume is the data quality? There's like it's this blanket term that I actually think captures a bunch of different like things that are going on.
Yeah. Or is it governance as well and
right.
compliance, right?
That's right. So I think it's one of the reasons why it never becomes a priority, because like it's too generalized across too many like too many different stakeholder use cases in a way. Like one use case is like, I'm a person authoring a data pipeline and I have assumptions about the data coming into me. And then there's data, then there's like, is the thing that I wrote correct? And then there's downstream, there's the stakeholders making assumptions about the thing they're consuming. And like, is that encoded anywhere in the system? I think data contracts starts to capture that dynamic in terms of more things people need to Google in terms of terminology. But
I
I
think
don't know. What's that? Oh, did I might have lost Eric?
Can offer some blog. We focus on governance, quality, and governance are often entangled. So we see enterprise going with different types of solutions. There could be a declarative approach like Dagster checks, for example. There's more core focused observability offerings that we work with. There's deep anomaly detection. I think you're exactly right, though, that the real question is there's all these different personas kind of involved in the blanket quality effort. What we really focus on is serving value across personas. So we're focused on the business user. Our quality partners are focused on really the firefighter use case. And what we're trying to do with partners like Sigma, for example, is to deliver the signal from the data quality framework to the business users so they can make fit for purpose decisions on data right in their existing workflows. So for example, we might see a Dagster check or a check from Soda, for example, that we can propagate downstream and surface directly within Sigma. And that's led us, because of our collaboration tools, to get more collaboration between, say, a data engineer, a data platform persona, and the business persona that has the context. What that drives is trust. And we think trust across personas is really the core important thing to look forward to. And to your point, Nick, we've gone beyond just best intentions, and we're starting to codify that in relation to our data products within Git to solidify what that collaboration, the output of that essentially.
Nice. Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the one concern that I come back to, and I guess in my past engineering history, is sometimes the presentation layer is kind of the tail that wags the dog when it comes to quality issues, though. Because that's where it's often pointed out, right? The report looks wrong, the data is weirdly anomalous compared to the prior week. And I feel like the challenge then becomes, how do you trace backwards from there, and how much time is the data team going to have to spend to figure that stuff out? So like what, like Jake, from your perspective, is that something that you see all the time? Like, are you trying to help teams to, I guess, get more insight into their data, like within Sigma as well?
Yeah, it's certainly something that we're thinking about. I mean, we offer embedded analytics, to better understand how folks are using the platform, which workbooks are of high use. But super excited to be here, to see the integration that y'all just launched with us around having that better picture and understanding directly within Dagster. I think, to the question that was asked, should data quality be an important thing? The answer is yes. If you're relatively new in your career and you're joining this, like, yes, please. You don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. and get a Slack from your CEO. That stuff should be paramount. So yes, with our metadata and integrations with partners like you all, it's been great. I think the other thing, though, just our fundamental architecture, again, being connected directly to a cloud data warehouse. If you're doing things with Unity Catalog and Databricks, or you're setting up Snowflake OAuth, we're able to take advantage of all of that. So your investment in the data platform and making that super strong, we're just going to inherit all of that. So we make the best out of all that hard work you put in. So seeing a lot of value in that. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think Liam just dropped a really insightful comment in there as well, that there's typically massive pressure on the various teams to kind of build the negotiation between them and who owns what and why it looks wrong here. And I think that kind of goes back to what Jared was saying in the presentation, where like this shift left, mindset actually does need to come into data engineering to help to push that. Not to bring shift left back again, but like but we have to kind of have that mindset, because then everyone has kind of equal ownership of the outcome here. And hopefully stop pointing fingers, ideally.
Yeah, I think the process component is huge here. And I think the philosophy of like what is correct is important to define, per Nick's point earlier. I think that correctness should be defined by the business stakeholders, right? As those are the people that are using the metrics to make decisions, to whatever it may be, drive. I mean, let's say in a typical scenario, there's embedded application scenarios and AI scenarios that might change that. But in this sort of the BI scenario, their definitions of correct should propagate downwards and then be codified into code by sort of an engineering liaison, right? And this might be a data engineer or a data platform team, but if they can take their definitions and codify them into things that can be versioned in Git and then can be statically checked when you make changes, that's likely going to result in the best scenario in data quality.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
that's
and
something
maybe
Eric was touching on as well, right? Is like codifying some of this stuff, and I love that all tools are heading this direction. Like, I think
yeah,
I give
and
Kubernetes a
just
little credit towards that, but yeah.
yeah, just to hammer that home, I feel like for far too long it's been this weird, the Spider-Man meme pointing where the business is pointing at the data team and you're like, what's going
Yep.
on? That just needs to be a thing of the past. The closer that the business is to the data and vice versa, the closer that the data team has business context and domain expertise, the more successful everyone's going to be. It feels like for whatever reason, for a long time, we kept them separated, but we need to bring them together.
Jake, I have a question for you. When you're thinking about BI and the interface between your stakeholders and the upstream engineers that you depend on, like how much can you shift left analytics, meaning that like you're democratizing, right? Which means I assume that most of your users are interacting with a web app where they're doing spreadsheet-like operations, and that's great, right? But that
Yeah.
is not integrated into a software engineering process, really. I guess, does Sigma or you have like kind of a position on what's appropriate to be like more in that I am clicking on a button and pressing save in a web app
Yeah.
versus checking in something into source control, and where the handover point is?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if it's fair to say that our perspective is we don't have a perspective because it's not totally true, but I think there are various companies in different parts of their data journey. And for some folks, like getting data and getting answers quick is super effective, and they're going to be super successful. As companies grow and mature over time, there are things that have to move or have to shift back left. And so I think our integrations with folks like DBT and Dagster help exemplify that. But so that's kind of the way we think about it. If you have a strong data team culture and you're able to document and build out those, presentation layer products that are tested against and all those different things, it makes the presentation layer much easier to work with and have trust in.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there's a huge amount of innovation to be had in what I like to call native branching in tools like BI tools, where there's kind of like a very lightweight branching flow to say like I'm like in a way that where someone doesn't have to understand Git, right? But it's like I am like making a preview copy of this BI dashboard. I'm syncing that actually with a changing upstream pipeline.
Sure.
And then I can test the entire flow end to end by like, I'm thinking about in terms of Dagster's branch deployments. We imagine a system where you branch, push up a staging environment, and then there's also a branched artifact in something like a BI tool, and you can kind of see all of it working end to end and merge them both simultaneously. I don't know if we've seen that like nailed anywhere yet, but I kind of have this think piece in my head called "The Future is Branched," where like go ahead.
If you want to see a feature that we've had out for a bit called version tagging, which effectively lets you do that, maybe we should, yeah. But I totally understand the point, and it is super valuable. It's like, all right, we're going to plan for this change. Well, what's going to happen? So we do allow for that in a UI, a GUI based visual. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting discussion. I do have to transition us though, and this is 2024, so we can't really close this out without talking about AI a little bit. I think we got to jump into that. So my question would be, and I think I want to start with you, Eric, because I think you'll have a unique perspective on this. How is generative AI reshaping the broader data ecosystem, but also like potentially your product strategy as well, and kind of how you're building things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I give maybe a three-part answer. First, in our theme of automation, that's one of the ways that we attack when I talked about enterprise data catalogs are typically have had challenges being stood up. We've invested in generative AI for enrichment of data assets. right? So trying to take away manual processes, and that's been incredibly successful. We have over 70% human acceptance rate of our generated descriptions. So we're doing that across the product. And then what we see is our customers who have data estates, to go back to that term, in the tens and hundred millions of assets within Atlan, they're beginning to break down that complexity by creating domains and subdomains. And what we're seeing is heavy demand from enterprise to adopt more AI use cases. So LLM experiences, for example, for their business users. And it's the metadata context, particularly bounded by these domains and products, that we see Atlan as an opportunity to work as a trust engine to essentially elevate the level of trust in those answers. So we see a lot of investment in that going on now with mutual customers. And then we think where everything is going is with agent-based workflows. So we're watching to see developments there. There's a lot of active investment from our partners, and waiting to see when folks are really ready to dip their toe in the water and start adopting in production use cases.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, if we could truly elevate the level of trust that are coming back from these answers, I think that would be the definitive game changer, right?
Yeah, I think about this question with Gen AI from two dimensions. One is how it's impacting the production side, meaning people authoring software, and then two, how technology is being used to deploy Gen AI for like solving business use cases. So in terms of like on the production side, I think that most tool authors should be thinking about making their tool a more amenable target for code generation, which will be the kind of, I think, the interface to AI du jour for quite a long time. So, I think that AI native kind of programming frameworks will be thought of as code generation targets. But then really thinking about the entire feedback loop, because code gen can only get you so far, and you still need precise interpretability in order to make software that actually works. So, when it comes to AI, I like to say there's a spectrum of people, from AI doomer, like people who are like, we need to bomb the data centers to prevent AGI, all the way to like AI boomer, which is like, oh, they've seen this before and blah, 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 back in my day. So I'm like, from doomer to boomer, I'm maybe like P75 boomer. But that still means that I think it's a complete revolution in the way that software will be produced. Like, it's a big deal here. Um, and so I think that it will change the way software is built forever, but I don't think it's going to automate away software engineers. I just think it's going to make them dramatically more productive. Um, on the consumption side, meaning actually using this to build effective tools, I almost I've been trying to think about this a lot. I think the default answer is that, well, any AI strategy has to be built on a data strategy, because the models are getting commoditized, and being able to use the structured data that is at an enterprise is going to be the differentiation. And I think that is true. I also think about it in terms of this is a little abstract, but almost like a marketplace for compute, where as you move stuff from Gen AI capabilities over to actual code, you actually are much more efficiently using compute, and and that is going to be like the rate limiting resource going forward, given the expensive GPUs. Let me give you an example. You could like ask an AI to like format your code base such and such a way, and that would work. Or you could use rough and do it instantaneously. You get the same outcome, but the difference is that actually rough is like orders and orders of magnitude more efficient with compute. So that's kind of how I think about like automated software becoming like more hand-tuned software, is like, can you more efficiently use compute? Because like you can't throw infinite GPUs at everything all the time. So anyway, that's kind of my shower
Yeah.
thought for the day on that. But
I totally agree with that take. I think that there is an enormous amount of probabilism in generative models, right? And you have something like a compiler that we built, which is a deterministic system, right? And it will tell you will the SQL run? Is it correct, right? Or, we just launched a linter this week, like a Rust-based linter for SQL, right? It's very much like what Nick mentioned for Rough, but for SQL. And it's the same idea. It's a deterministic system that will, at very high performance, clean up your code. What I think Gen AI needs to go from probabilistic to deterministic is an efficient way to determine if its output is correct, right? And I think how we've been thinking about our engine in the face of that is, and a lot of companies who are building that kind of like text to SQL layer have reached out to us to use this, is as the validation layer. So if Gen AI spits out SQL, how can you in under a second know if that SQL is valid and will run, right? Well, ideally you have a Rust-based compiler right there that tells you immediately, hey, this thing won't run because this line is trying to cast a timestamp to a big int. You can't do that. And then you can feed that context back into the LM to kind of have this iteration loop that produces valid and good SQL. And if you can accomplish that, then you get to like the gold mine. And the gold mine is I take natural language and it gives me the answer in data, right? And I think a stepping stone to that is a very efficient validator that deterministically controls the output of the LLM.
Yeah. The problem is today it's garbage in, not value out. It needs to be slightly cleaned up garbage in, value out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Jake, yeah, I'm curious. Does AI extend into your side of the world?
We're going all the way to the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great way. Yeah. What we focused on so far in that conversation had been around the data team and building better data products and things like that. But where we're seeing a ton of excitement and success really is, bringing generative AI to business users. And what do I mean by that? Of course, with Snowflake and Databricks, you can run an AI query, you can run Cortex Complete. You can do all these things very easily, and therefore you can do them in Sigma. So, even internally, we're building sort of data applications which are summarizing a ton of Salesforce opportunities or Gong calls to better understand coaching activities. We had a customer who was doing claims analysis and spending 45 hours a week trying to figure out which claims to raise up or escalate, and using things like classify or other Cortex functions. They're able to do that much more efficiently. So all the groundwork that's being laid on the data platform side is amazing, but in addition to that, allowing business users to get their hands on this. And again, it's all built on the enterprise data, right? It's not going rogue and doing all those things. Hopefully it's less garbage in, to your point, Brandon. But yeah, it's super exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks. Unfortunately, we have managed to take up all of the time, basically. So we are going to have to close out here, but this was an excellent discussion. David, I saw that you have one unanswered question in the chat. Can you drop that in our community Slack and we'll do our best to address that? I really appreciate you guys joining. Thank you so much. I guess to close it out, this is a wrap for Data Platform Week. So thank you to all of our panelists. I don't think it would have been possible, honestly, to have better guests that are more dialed into the community and the challenges that like data teams are facing today. So this was pretty much perfect. And I think we had a lot of comments in chat reflecting that as well. And then just in general, a huge thank you to all of the attendees. Throughout the week, I've been pretty inspired, honestly, by the sheer number of people that joined each day. And we've had really insightful questions each day. So that has been awesome. And it's clear to me that Dagster and obviously, the communities around Atlan, SDF, and Sigma have really great communities. And I think what's most important is that you're kind of taking everything you're learning here and you're trying to do the best to build the best stuff for your data teams and truly empower like the data practitioners. And that's what we want to push towards. So a big thank you as well to all of our speakers this week. I know everyone has very busy schedules, so thanks again for fitting this in. And I guess with that in mind, Data Platform Week is officially concluded. So keep an eye on our YouTube where we will post the recording for the entire session, as well as some higher quality versions of individual talks. And then until next time, I am Brandon Phillips, and I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Eric, Jake, and Elias again for coming. I don't know, this was fun. You guys want to start a podcast or something?
Yeah, let's
do it.
It was pretty smooth,
Yeah.
I thought.
The problem with this, Nick, is that we could talk for like 8 hours,
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah,
we had to
fine.
time box it. It didn't work.